Good morning, good day, good evening to all you lovely people out there. My name is Jesper Olsen. I am a program manager here at FyrSoft, and I also had the pleasure of organizing and moderating this particular webinar. I want to thank everyone for setting aside some of your very, very precious time these days to listen to some of our recent experiences and in regards to this new normal of working remotely and doing so efficiently. With that said, we'll be covering the Microsoft technologies ins and out, and I have a very adept technical team here with me, and we will be going into that in a lot more details very shortly. But before we start our deep dive and into the agenda of today, I just want to go over some quick housekeeping rules. So what we're going to do today is the recording of this webinar will of course be available for everyone that attended and also not attended. And we will also be posting it on our FyrSoft website, fyrsoft.com. And as I mentioned to the people that came in a little earlier, out to the right to your screen, you have a Q&A feed. And then by all means, you're very welcome to ask any questions that you have during the presentation, and then whoever's not speaking of our technical panel that I'll introduce shortly will be trying to answer it as best as they can, and then we'll probably bring that up in the Q&A section later on today. Right, so and the agenda for the agenda, I will leave that over to my panel, and then I have to introduce these two lovely technical speakers that we have. So Josh, if you would please change the slide. Right, there we go.
Getting the hang of it, sorry.
No, you're perfectly fine. You're perfectly fine. All right, so for our speakers today, I have the pleasure of introducing Jegadesh Sankar, which is a director at Cloud Services here at FyrSoft, and he's bringing in more than 10 years of experience in modern work. And then also modern work specialist Josh Graham, who will be going over some of the technical details regarding the Microsoft technologies. But with that, I'll actually just give the word over to Jegadesh, and he will run you guys through the agenda of today. And I'll be sitting in the background moderating everything. So enjoy, guys. Jegadesh.
All right, thank you very much, Jesper. Again, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone. We really appreciate you taking your time to join this webinar. So let's quickly run through the agenda before we get to the details. So what we wanted to cover as part of this webinar is we wanted to start with where we are in terms of the challenges that we currently see in the environment, especially in this post-COVID timeframe. And we'll talk about the customer success stories that we recently had to address the specific challenges. And we'll go a little bit deeper and talk about what are some of those Microsoft technology stack and solutions that are currently available and that we have built on top of it. And Josh would kind of talk through all of this solutions, and he will put a nice picture on how this can be tightly integrated and work as a one solution. So really look at the solutions in action. And as a participant who are joining this webinar, we will kind of talk through and say, hey, what is something which you can really take away from this webinar, which is something very tangible, and you can take this and you can start implementing this after this webinar. So we really wanted to leave something for you. So we'll talk a little bit more on detail towards the end of this session. We have an interesting offer for people who are joining this webinar. So we'll cover that in detail. And we'll also talk about the outcomes and goals on what you could be driving out of that. And of course, we'll have the question and answer session. We'll talk about that towards the end. So feel free to submit in your questions. So just a quick minute to talk about FyrSoft. Most of you guys might already know, but FyrSoft has been a Microsoft partner for over a decade. And primarily, we are focused on helping customers embrace cloud and move them to cloud and adopt technologies on the cloud. So we have been a Microsoft premier partner for several years, and we have won several awards in the Microsoft Partner Conference. So we really come with good credentials from the Microsoft as well as on the field. And the team that we have here is more passionate about building solutions and how tailoring the solutions to address their challenges. So it's not just, hey, there's a project that's been implemented. It's not that. It's about how that tools and project could change your business and could benefit your business. So let's talk about where we are in terms of current world. We all know 2020 has been really rough, and we went through a lot of changes, both on the personal side as well as on the business side. And one thing that has been rapidly increasing while we try to address the virus on the other side, we also saw several viruses and cyber attacks being targeted on us. So the statistics says since COVID-19 has begun, the US FBI reports about 300% increase in cyber crimes. And we also see about 45% of the security finding survey respondents said that they don't have an adequate way of addressing the remote work setup and the security risks in remote work setup world. So that's a pretty big number, but most people do not realize they already have their existing tools and they could really leverage those tools to address them. Now, they also understand that companies are challenged on IT budgets. So a forecast says about in 2020, there was about 9% cut in IT budgets, and that will continue in 2021 with 5% cut in IT budgets. Now, to address all these challenges, Microsoft has really built a lot of technology stack, and Microsoft is not the only company that offers end-to-end identity, security, and compliance solutions to protect people, organization, spanning identity management, devices, cloud apps, data, and infrastructure. And that's from Satya Nadella. So Microsoft have really grown deep on the cyberspace, and they have done an excellent job in integrating all of these products. We'll go through that in a minute. So let's look at challenges in a quick summary. So one of the key challenges that customers come back to us and say is, now the business operations have shifted outside your corporate network. So it is not just the IT, most of the businesses are actually happening outside your corporate network in an internet connected devices and people working from anywhere, right? And this has led to rising security threats and compliance requirements. A lot of industries are struggling to meet that compliance requirements, which they are required to meet by law. And managing these remote devices could be challenging. Of course, the users are connected in VPN, they are continuing to work, but that's not always the case because IT really cannot manage these devices when the users are not connected in VPN, and we truly need a solution where we can manage all these devices from cloud directly. And we talked about the budget cuts early. So these budget cuts are leading to not just IT expenses, but also leading to thin IT teams. So we really need a solution where we can manage all of these challenges with a lean IT team. And we need to be really efficient and productive about how we approach these challenges. All right, and the biggest challenge that comes towards the end is, okay, hey, now our users are working remote. How do we onboard and offboard these resources? And how do we handle that process efficiently because the users are not coming to office anymore? So we have built some solution to address all of the specific challenges. So before I turn over to Josh, I kind of wanted to give a whole outline. We'll be talking through a case study on how we exactly helped a customer to address the specific challenge. And we'll talk about the technology pieces behind the scenes and then the solution. So Josh, why don't you walk us through the challenge that we helped for one of our customer, and let's look at the technology stack behind the scenes.
All right, thanks. I do love talking about success stories. So this one, Georgia Office of the State Treasurer. So basically when COVID hit, the governor of Georgia laid down the law, says everybody needs to be more secure. We have people taking home hardware. We have accounts that need to be monitored, activity that needs to be taken care of. We need to be more secure. Just laid it out, increase security, reduce the cost. What did he do? They came to us. We came in, we took a look, see what their environment was, and we said, we got this. We can do all of this. For Device and application management, we went ahead and hooked up Intune. We leveraged Windows Autopilot to enable no-touch device provisioning. That means the hardware, desktops, laptops, whatever, shipped directly from the manufacturer straight to the end user. No more taking that thing to the IT support desk, having them image it, or having someone come set up a desktop on your desk. That's all gone now. Now we get hardware straight from the manufacturer, customized with your apps, your rules, your profiles, all that stuff. Then once we got that all rolling, we hooked up Azure Sentinel for security monitoring. We had so many different products that work with the Microsoft Security Center that we tied it all into Azure Sentinel for an incident management system. They allowed you to create tickets, assign users, and some of the really simple ones like auto remediate. You can password resets, things that don't require a hand touch. And then of course, we also cranked on Windows Hello for Business and Azure AD for identity security. Even went so far as to hook these guys up with physical key fobs, FIDO2. It was great. So what happened? How did it all work out after we presented this? It went great. We got them a lean IT with increased productivity. That means we've got more users per IT support personnel that they can help. We got enhanced security. We got comprehensive security solutions with key fobs, passwordless authentication, log in with the phone, and multi-factor auth. It went over so well that it became the model for the Georgia state agencies. Everyone else that was working in the government departments, they had to take a look at the Office of the State Treasurer and say, we got to do what they're doing. That's how well it went. So let me go ahead and break down some of the technologies and show you how it all went together. We're going to go ahead and show you the technology functions and then the Microsoft solution, the product that goes with it. So, securing identity, Azure Active Directory. Everybody says, oh yeah, we got it hooked up, but there's a lot more to it than people realize. You can actually set rules like conditional access or risky sign-ins that say whether or not that user is allowed to log in based on certain criteria. Are they logging in from a trusted network? Are they physically able to log in from this location and this other location and travel that distance physically? Things like that. If you see one login on the West Coast and you see the exact same login on the East Coast, one of those isn't right in most cases. So that a whole bunch of security is right there, right in the Azure Active Directory. All right, next we've got the monitoring. This, of course, is the Azure Sentinel that I was talking about, tied in with the Microsoft Security Center. All the alerts from all the products, Office Defender, Windows Defender, Microsoft Defender, ATP, Azure Threat Protection, all of those. They all tie in. They all have their own alert system. They all have events, logs, everything that we can send to Azure Sentinel for a single pane. So every single support person has the exact same view and they do the exact same things no matter what the product is. Gives everybody a very simple, plain user experience. It's great. Data protection. All right, so we got Azure Information Protection and Windows Information Protection. This is what you use to protect your IP, intellectual property, or private documents. You can use labels to classify data if it's allowed to be forwarded, exported, taken out of that organization, that kind of thing. We got, of course, the Defender for O365. You crank that on for your Exchange and you get phishing alerts. You get safe links that will scan email attachments prior to you even being able to see the email. Microsoft Threat Protection, which is part of the package that's included with M365. Now the big parts, device management, Intune. I also threw in their config manager because if you went with the whole cloud management gateway and put that whole thing up there in Azure or some other cloud solution, you can do a lot of the same stuff. But Intune allows us to set the rules and profiles for the hardware that the users have taken out of the side of the network. As long as it's connected to the internet, you can manage that device. Application deployment and management. Here comes Intune again. You can push your apps. It doesn't have to be store apps. They can be Win32 apps, packaged apps, anything that you can normally deploy to a machine now, you can push through Intune. Various methods. Of course, the easiest way is to go through the Microsoft Store if you're using the new Universal Windows platform. And then device provisioning. This is a big one. This is what we were talking about, how device manufacturers send hardware straight to users. And what they do is they give us the hardware list, the device IDs, we punch them into Intune and Autopilot, and the second those things connect to the internet, boom, they start downloading all our company info, our organization profiles, our software, our rules, turn on the antivirus, make sure it's up to date, all of these things. These are all the technologies, and they all work together, every single one. So I'm going to go ahead and talk about some of the things that you may already have and some of the things where we can help you save money, because everybody says going to the cloud, it's expensive, but how much are you paying for management tools now? You may already have licenses for a lot of these things, like Microsoft Defender, one of the leading enterprise antivirus solutions. Microsoft Teams. We've got Teams Pro coming out soon. If you're teaching classes, holding an all-hand company meeting, you can now do these live events like we're doing now inside your own company. You've got M365 feature implementations, comes with Windows Help for Low Business right on the plan, comes with a license for Intune management. All these things, Office, Windows, all seamlessly integrate, better than my fingers there, together, and for a singular uniform management experience. And then of course we've also got Windows Virtual Desktop. A lot of people might not have those licenses yet, but if you subscribe to the M365, talk to your sales guy. All right, license optimization. One of the things that we're really good at is finding out where you're overutilized and underutilized. Sometimes we can take licenses from one area, move them into a different area. Say sometimes you have a full licensed user where in this position, it could have been just the device license that was needed or a shared device, things like that. We can help you out with that. Not only can we help you out with licensing and things of that nature, we can help you once you get to the cloud. If you're using servers already in the cloud, or we help you get to the cloud, we can do. We've got a lot of experience with cloud, especially in Azure. We can auto provision servers. We can do scaling. We can tell you if a server's overutilized, we can, bump up the resources, say use the scripts. And if you got other servers, that aren't being utilized, step it down a notch, things like that. Set things on demand, things of that nature. Okay, so I went through and I told you about all the technologies already. So we're going to just go a little walkthrough on how this whole thing works. All right, legacy state. This is what everything used to be. You got the data center, you got your corporate LAN, you've got your on-site Active Directory, you got your files stored somewhere, and then you got config manager for device management, and all your devices connected through Wi-Fi or LAN or anything like that. Well, now you got people connecting in through VPN, still connecting to the same old resources back at the data center in the corporate LAN. Well, you give somebody like us a call, good old FyrSoft, and we will get you on your way. We will start getting you tied into Azure Active Directory. We'll get you into Office 365. This is where the identity management starts to come in. You start to see in resources. And once you get into the Office 365 space, you start doing teams. You can coordinate your collaboration, which means you can store documents in the same place that are related just to your team. No more SharePoints of shares of 400 folders and nobody remembers where anything is. With Teams, you can integrate, collaborate. It works wonderfully. Trust me on this one. All right. So then we get into the device management. We're getting there. We're going to start putting down rules. We're going to connect all those machines that are out there on the internet. We're going to start bringing them back in under your management platform. Say, make sure the passwords are good. No one's logging on with local administrator to install Minecraft, things like that. Once we get that part installed, then we can bring in the hardware. The hardware manufacturers, once they say that you're on Intune, they're like, oh, hey, we got this. We hook up our agreement, our organization to our hardware manufacturer. They give us the device IDs as they ship devices out to users. No more bringing them all in, no more imaging every single machine and then shipping it out. It goes out because the second that user plugs that thing into the internet, boom, organization data. You get our rules, you get our accounts, our apps, everything that we push out through Intune. It's all set up just like that. Then you can start doing the move, start pulling things off of, and then of course we kick in the Windows Hello for Business. I forgot about that secure step. Once you actually get into the whole Azure Active Directory and Office 365 space, you can start using Windows Hello for Business. That means you can use the facial recognition ID for logins in a secure way. You can use fingerprint readers. You can use key fobs. You can use USB FIDO2 keys with fingerprint readers built onto them, and then they store everything in a certificate method. It's great. It's brilliant stuff. All right. So once you get all your machines managed, you can start upgrading your apps, move them to the universal Windows platform. Not required, but it's nice. And then here we go. Future state. Everything's connected. Everything's working. Everybody's happy. So let's start kicking it up a notch. We'll start throwing in the Azure Advanced Threat Protection. That's going to start doing a lot more monitoring. That's going to be watching login activity, Office document activity, anything out of the ordinary where things start clicking and say, hey, Microsoft AI will start picking up on patterns and things like this. This is where it all starts coming in. This is why the Advanced Threat Protection is actually Advanced Threat Protection. Then, of course, you help out your support team. You tie all that into Azure Sentinel. Very easy management system. Create incidents, assign incidents to people, mark them good, have a coffee. All right, now that we got all this, notice there's no more VPN connection. Once we're into the whole Office space, we don't need to go back dial home anymore. We don't have file servers. We don't have a VPN connection. No, none of that is needed anymore. We've got the management. So what do? We just keep going. We just keep cutting it loose. We bring in some virtual desktops for anybody who doesn't want hardware, or if the hardware was so expensive that we couldn't ship them, say, an AutoCAD design machine, straight from Dell or whatever. So what we got Windows virtual desktops. You can register those things at low-level email checking machines all the way to 3D processing monsters. It's all there. There's really no reason to go to the cloud because there's literally nothing you can't do at this point. All right, so I'm going to take a quick minute because you see this whole management platform, right? And you see all these devices, right? Security is a big deal. So one of the things you got to remember is that the security hardware needs to be updated. So I'm going to talk about Microsoft Surface for a moment. All right. All of these devices, the BIOS, UEFI, TPM, these are all chips stored inside the devices. They all need to be updated constantly. Now, I'm not just talking driver updates. It's usually driver updates, but firmware updates where anything can go wrong. You update a TPM, forget a command line switch, it forgets the BitLocker keys, you're going to have to do a BitLocker recovery, that sort of thing. And for each one of these packages, you're going to have to create a package and then deploy it through your management platform, be it Intune or Config Manager or any other thing. It's the same goes for the devices. We've got the webcams, we got the fingerprint readers, we got the card scanners. All of these things all require updates. Every time you think you've got your hand on everything and it's all taken care of, somebody finds a new bug, or somebody finds a loophole, somebody finds some other thing that forces you to have to update all your hardware. So I am going to say, go to Surface. Why? Because all of these devices get updated from Windows Update. No more installing packages as an administrator, no more deploying packages to somebody who's 100 miles away and hoping they don't fail. No more, just worrying at night whether or not this BIOS upgrade is going to just fail or not. With the Surface and the whole Surface family, actually, all these updates, webcam, fingerprint reader, card scanners, everything, it all comes through Windows Update. No administrator privileges needed, no packages to install, no management. You just say, push the updates, and then you check it in the morning. Make my life easier. Everybody go to Surface. It'll make the whole secure remote management thing beautiful. It'll be smooth. All right. So a lot of people ask, this is great. There's a lot of technologies. They're all working together, but how do we get started? I've got the person to tell you all about our assessment offer, because the first thing you got to do, of course, is you got to look at an environment. And so I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Jegadesh, and he's going to go ahead and explain how you get started on all this. All right, here we go.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Josh. And I think you did a good job in presenting the overall solution stack. So I'm sure all of you understood these tools, and some of these tools were already in play in your organization. But the key message that we are kind of driving here is these tools are more mature now. They all can be tightly integrated, and this is your whole new ecosystem that's built on the cloud. It's constantly updated, and it is available in the cloud for you to leverage those tools. So, and these work seamlessly. So that's even better, and it does exactly what we used to do in the on-prem environment. Plus, with the cloud features, it gets updated every few weeks. So we always got the latest and greatest tools to address the challenges that we see in the IT world. So what are the next steps, right? So most customers come back to us and ask, hey, what do? We already have these tools leveraged in some capacity. How do we ensure that we take advantage of all the new features and have a truly cloud managed machines for remote device management and security solution that is built on the cloud, which could really coexist with some of the on-premises tool that you already have? So our recommendation is you can always start with an assessment. So look at where you are in terms of the existing tools, the licenses, and what features you have already implemented and what's something which you wanted to implement. To make this process easier, we have actually packaged an assessment offer where we have broken this down into a quick 3-day engagement, where in the first day, we would start with an kickoff and then discovery, where we would just go through your whole environment, look at the tools and technologies in place, and then look at the policies, the governance procedures in place. There will be stakeholder interviews. And once the data is all collected, we can quickly help you put things together in terms of analyzing the data, and then we'll come up with an architectural diagram on where you are with the current state and what would be the future architectural diagram where you wanted to go based on your business challenges. We'll put together that nicely in a diagram, and then it would be on the assessment workbook. And in the day 3, we would come back and present the data to you. And this would really show you how you can build a roadmap, which is also going to help you reduce the cost of ownership and how you can effectively start managing them. So let's move on to the next slide. And then some of the key deliverables that we have seen helping our customers in the past is these assessments would often lead to a documentation of their current state. So you have a clear picture on where you are and a clear roadmap that is built to mature your device management and security strategy with cloud first as the primary focus. and there would also be a cost optimization plan that we will build as part of this assessment. So this is our recommendation. You can start with an assessment and go with your product implementation and maturity right there. So I talked about the special offer that we wanted to provide for people who joined. I know it has been last 30 minutes. You have all joined and have gone through the journey with us. To make this simpler, we are offering this assessment as an investment from our side, and this is also partially funded by Microsoft. So you guys can really take this as a call to action and start looking at where you are and what you need to do to mature your device management strategy. That's something which you can start getting rolled out right away. So that's something which I wanted to kind of provide that as a thank you note for joining this webinar. Now, let's quickly get into a question and answer session, and then we'll talk a little bit more on any questions that you guys might have, and we'll go from there. So over to you, Jesper.
Oh, it works a little bit better when you're on mute. Well, thank you very much for the rundown, guys. Before we get into the Q&A session specifically, like there is a little bit of text up here on the screen specifically, and it's just something that we found worked super well. Like as it says, like we're more than happy to sit down and have a one-on-one session with you guys, and probably also your MS support team if you're engaged with Microsoft in any way. Basically just a strategy session, figuring out where, like basically how we go from A to B, and rundown of everything that's related to M365 or any other questions that you might have before you would start going into a specific assessment. Like just to basically, it just works very well to get everybody like on the same page. And there's also my email down here, and by all means, like just shoot an email my way, and I'll be sure to send it to the right people and get everything started. But with that out of the way, then I'm just going to post a quick question here, because we did have quite a few questions in the feed. So the question that I'm posting right now is like, it's more on the security side and Sentinel. So why is consolidating all the events in Sentinel such a good idea? Why not have them separately and address them knowing which part of the ecosystem that the events were attributed to?
I'll take this one.
All right, I'll fire you up on the screen.
Okay, so so the reason that Sentinel works out so well, and instead of having different portals, is that when you have an IT team, you can't have one guy who just does Office 365 alerts or Exchange alerts or antivirus alerts. And if that guy's out sick and then you have a security incident, what are you supposed to do? With Azure Sentinel, you get a singular incident response plan that everybody can learn. Everybody uses the same. Like I said, it's basically a plain vanilla interface. Everybody does the same things when an incident occurs. Why not have everybody in their own specialized section? Yes, if your company is large enough and you have a, say, department for Active Directory actions, Azure Active Directories, like new users, things like that, and they also handle the security, that could work. But honestly, what it comes down to in the future with lean IT, you're going to have someone who wears a security hat who manages all these incidents. And rather than having to log into 6 or 7 different portals or have all of the alert emails go straight to their one mailbox, you get the Azure Sentinel CM involved. And, you know, a lot, like I said, there's incidents auto creation. There's even auto remediates based on the type of incident and where it happens. So, yeah, you can stick with the classic security model where everybody has their one space. Say Joe is in charge of Azure AD, Bob is in charge of Exchange, and then Bill is in charge of all the desktops, things like that. But when you get everybody working on the same platform and you can see the tickets that everyone else is doing, you can actually reach over and say, hey, I got something similar, can you help me out, things like that. It's just one of the ways that collaborating with other team members seems to make it all work a lot better.
Yeah, let me just chime on that question real quick. So the other aspect that we should probably consider is Sentinel comes with default connectors that you can enable in your environment, which is already pre-configured to address some of the challenges that you guys might already be seeing. And the second note I wanted to throw that is that Sentinel is built on a lot of AI features. So you can really start leveraging those AI features, and this tool is kind of really built, and a lot of features are getting released every month. So I would highly recommend consider leveraging the existing connectors that are available, and so that way you can kind of start seeing what's already available, and you can continue to see the progress that's coming up, because this is growing much faster than the other Microsoft products. So I think I would highly recommend turning it on and see where things are, and then start taking advantage of what's already available for you.
And thankfully, with like most Microsoft products, it does have a trial. So try it out, see if you like it, and if it doesn't work, move on. That's a great thing about Azure. Everything has a trial.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm also pretty sure that just the amount of security people that are working on it from Microsoft perspective, it's being updated on a daily basis with a massive amount of support staff that's basically running down algorithms and general workbooks on a daily basis. So just having that Siemens SOAR tool is just incredible, because basically you have the entire Microsoft backing on that specific aspect.
Right, and it's in Azure, so you don't have to have a specialized console. You don't have to have a special jump box that you go to access the security platform, things like that. It's all right there.
All right. We could talk about Sentinel all day, but I also have another question. It's a little bit more basic. I'm going to be posting it right this second. So, what are the prerequisite licenses or subscriptions required to have access to all of these MS services?
Okay, so licensing. That sounds more like a Jegadesh question. You want that one?
Yeah, I can probably address that, Josh. So the licensing question, this becomes really tricky. It is really dependent on what you really want to implement on this solution. If you're looking at the whole different stack, then that's a different kind of licensing that comes in. But most companies, they start this journey with one phase at a time. So the way that we see our customers, they already have Azure Active Directory with Office 365 to some extent. So that's Azure AD and your Office 365, either E3. And if you wanted to take the advantage of managing your devices, then that comes your EMS suite, Enterprise Mobility and Suite, and Security Suite, where you can add Intune, Autopilot, and few other security features. If you wanted to leverage the full stack, Microsoft 365 would be the right SKU. And you have two different variations there. It's E3 and E5. So E3 comes with most of what you saw on the solution stack. And if you need more advanced security, you can always go with M365 E5, which provides additional security and productivity tools like Teams calling and the additional security element that comes on the desktop side. So it really depends on the solution stack that you wanted to implement, and you have a lot of flexibility to choose what licenses that you already own and then where you wanted to go. So maybe you can start with device management with EMS. I see most customers use Intune just for mobile device management. So we can start with EMS for PC management and then slowly progress it through the other SKUs during the next renewal. So there are a lot of ways that we can answer. So I'm sorry there is not one direct answer to this question. It could get really tricky, but we could definitely help you. If you have any specific questions and scenarios around that, we'll be more than happy to look at that and provide a recommendation on that.
Yeah, exactly. That's also part of what one-on-one sessions usually revolve around. We'll get to the depths of all your questions in that regard. Right. So moving on, and this is more in terms of the holistic solution that we saw with with the Office of the State Treasurer. So the question here is like, how much time does it take on average to light up all the services from end to end?
Yeah, I would take that question. So we kind of get often people ask this question. So to implement these products, if you wanted to look at, hey, I wanted to just turn this on and then start integrating it, it doesn't take that much time because some of these tools are pretty hands-off. So I would say probably a focused effort on say 4 to 8 weeks, you can pretty much have all these tools turned on with some of those basic policies and procedures configured. But if you really wanted to go into a deep dive and have it customized and configured as how you guys used to do in your on-prem world where everything is customized, there is a detailed process, policies and procedures, it might take a little bit longer. So as I think it kind of goes back to the previous question as well. There's no one straight answer, but to get at least all of this turned on so you can start managing your PCs that are currently remote and take control back, it might probably be a few weeks. But to get into a state where you wanted to have everything built and managed from the cloud without any dependency on on-prem infrastructure, then that could be like a few more weeks. We really need to look at the scenarios on what you really wanted to achieve to provide an estimate on what would be the timeline. But this is something which you can easily take advantage of in a fair amount of, 4 weeks is nothing much there, right? We can easily implement and get this going from there.
Yeah, in this case, I mean, this is why we have the assessment. We can give you, projected timelines and things of that nature. It's like we come in, we see what you got, and we've got experience with these things. I mean, this is what we do for a living. We take companies to the next level of technology, and we can give you a fairly good estimate on how long it's going to take. But I'll tell you what, the number one determining factor is the users, bringing the users on board. Teaching them to be more secure using MFA, saving things in OneDrive instead of on their desktop, things like that. That's usually the big determining factor there.
Yep, that's important. Building that roadmap and the strategy to roll this out across your organization and getting your users adopt to these things. It's not really a huge change for users, but the users need to be on board as well.
All right. I've been switching this back and forth because I think every time that you guys are about to finish and then I put my face up here and then I don't say anything, so I look a little silly. But finally, it's my time again. So along those lines, along the previous lines in terms of lighting up the services, then there's a question here on like how long does it take to migrate your on-prem file server to cloud?
I guess that all depends on how much data you're moving and the speed of your internet connection, because it can. I mean, I've moved terabytes. Honestly, okay, if you're talking about moving terabytes of data, find the nearest Microsoft data center, talk to your rep, put them on a hard drive and drop it off, because otherwise you're just going to be paying for data going upload. But that's really, that's really a dependent question. It's like how much data and what's your network speed. If it's like a few hundred gigs of SQL databases, no big deal, depending, of course, unless you run over to the Starbucks and upload it that way, it's purely dependent on your internet connection. But
right.
like I said,
add one. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Josh.
I was gonna say, but like I said, in these situations where you have to move terabytes and even petabytes, you do have the option of taking your data to a Microsoft data center. So.
Right. So I think I'll just add a couple of points towards the end. So you do have an option to ship the hard disk to the data center and get it directly uploaded. There are specific tools that we have implemented for our customers in the past, where we could pre-stage your data, stagger it, and then do a delta sync. And when the final cutover comes, we can do a cutover, and then your users will start connecting to cloud and start getting the data from there. So that's something which is doable. If you prefer to do it that regular route, there are tools and technologies that are available. There are certain limitations and there are certain workarounds. We could achieve this for our customer. We had a customer who was based out of US, headquartered in US. They had offices in UK. and they had offices in a small country called Equatorial Guinea, where it was connected through a satellite link. So we could really come up with a solution to optimize and get their terabytes of data moved to cloud. And then that was an Office 365 SQL engagement. And we could really move them to Azure Active Directory with Office 365 and the total file server hosted onto SharePoint and Teams. That's something which we have done. We carry that expertise. Again, this is based on specific scenarios, and we can address that based on what your specific needs and challenges are around that.
Awesome. Good answer. Right. So this next question is a little bit more aligned to the new work from home paradigm and like how we're addressing once we get out of this new normal, or if we ever will. But basically the question goes like, how are they managing when users are then coming back to the office with this new technology? Like how are we gonna do that transition once we basically perfected the art of staying remote?
I'm never going back to the office. You can't stop. I'm joking, as I do this from our conference room. No, so actually one of the things you can do if you choose Intune or even Config Manager as your management platform, you can do several different types of things. There's like hybrid device join, whereas you connect your Intune and Azure Active Directory devices to your on-site AD Connect, and then they are connected in the domain as well, so that you can bring your management platform back up. If you taken it down, you can reuse those users because they'll be connected via UPN. The only difference is, of course, everything will be going through the internet now instead of the local LAN. So getting users back on the company LAN or access to company resources once they're back physically in the office, not a big deal. It's a thing. The solution was initially designed to be in and out, remote workers. The thing was everybody had their devices on the corporate LAN, and you had devices out there that weren't on the corporate LAN. Well, now it's the other way around. Everything's out there, and occasionally pieces are coming back in one after another. And this works exactly in that scenario. So hybrid domain joins, device management, not a problem.
All right, I was just hanging on for a second to see if Jegadesh had something on the line as well, so I don't put my face up with a funny look. But moving on here, I've got another question. So, is it possible to leverage selected services if my organization is already using third-party services?
Well, I can take that question. Yes, of course, yes. Some of these tools that you see specifically on the security side of things, that can be definitely leveraged. Multiple layers of security is always a good idea. We see our customers start from the hardware layer and then the operating system layer, and then they would have some tools on the to monitor the network and stuff. So that's doable. If you look at another scenario of, let's say you already have a product like Microsoft or Zoom, can I go to Teams? That's something which we can do. Some of these assessment that we do for our customer that often leads to product consolidation. They would see if there is an opportunity to consolidate their existing the product licenses which they're paying for a third party and replace it with a Microsoft product. So that's something which we see often happening. Josh, do you want to add anything to that?
No, that's pretty good. I mean, one of the things, of course, we're going to tell you is if you're already paying for Defender or licenses for other tools that you've got, you might as well use them. But yeah, integrating with other third-party tools is not a problem. If you've got Azure Active Directory, you don't have to pick Intune as your mobile device management platform. There are others out there. And if you've got Okta as your identity security solution, you can use Intune for your MDM. There's many different ways. All these pieces, even though they work together seamlessly, they're all separate products. They can still be, disconnected, reconnected, and rerouted. There's a lot of different ways to do things inside Azure. It's not completely closed off inside a bubble. they've all got events, they've all got management platforms, they've all got ways to interact with each other that could easily be brought into a third party.
Awesome, thank you. And I'm actually running a little low on questions here, but along the same lines here, I think people this particular individual was discussing like specific hardware, and it looks as if he might have a Dell computer himself now that we're also talking about Surface, but like, does Autopilot work with Dell computers is the question.
Yes, definitely. Dell was actually one of the first manufacturers, I think, that signed up for the Autopilot program. I know they were the first ones that I worked with at Autopilot back in the city of Atlanta, actually. It also works with the resellers, although your resellers may add a little money on top of some fees or some things like that on top of it. But yeah, Dell is one of the first hardware manufacturers that I worked with Autopilot, and it worked great right out of the box. You know, they'd shoot over a CSV, I'd upload it into the Intune portal, and somebody would fire up a machine, and there we go. And one of the fun things actually about Intune and Autopilot is that, like, say you get a device or lose a device, or you get a device back, you can do what's called an Autopilot reset on a device and click it from the console. So then that machine reboots, wipes its data, comes back as a brand new machine, and you just roll through as if it was an Autopilot machine. It's great. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I do believe like I actually ran out of questions here. So like we are actually, we're making good time as well. Look at that. We haven't even used an entire hour yet. So if you guys have any more questions out there, by all means fire it away in the Q&A, or if you've had enough of our monologue, then we might even cut it short so you have a chance to catch a bit of coffee before probably the next meeting. Yeah, exactly. But I'm just gonna, so meanwhile, while we do that, then again, I just want to reiterate that like if you have any further questions, like you might not want to like put a question up here in the Q&A where there's a lot of eyes to see, but anything related to any of these technology stacks or specific assessments that we were discussing, or if you have any questions related to like what the funding would be or anything, and like how we work with Microsoft on a daily basis, then by all means, again, like just the other way, just reach out to me on my email down below here, and then I'll be very, very prompt in responding to you guys, and I'll be very, very happy to set up just a quick chat, and I'll probably even bring in Jegadesh and Josh for the same reason, so we can work it out in unison.
Excellent. Yeah, I know we talked about a lot of technologies today, and you know, if some of it went over your head, that's fine. It's what we're here for. Microsoft loves us. We get people to the next level. This is what we do. We open our arms welcomely, say, come on, we'll show you how it all works, and then we hold your hands as we take you there. It's our job. It's what we do. Don't hesitate to ask. Reach out to Jesper. He'll put you in contact with me and Jegadesh, and then, you know, we can just take a look at what you got, see where you want to go, and then, you know, show you the steps along the way. It's what we do.
Excellent. So again, I think from my side, I would just say thank you very much for a full hour. Hope you learned something new here today. So we'll be there to help you if you guys need us. Thank you very much. Jesper?
Yeah, I think we've more or less concluded it. Like, we have 5 minutes left. There's no more questions in the pipeline. Again, as Jegadesh said, like thank you everyone so very much for spending a small hour here with us. Ask any questions that you might want, and thank you guys for spending some of your time and telling them about the Microsoft stack and everything. So thanks everyone, and it was a pleasure to present to you guys and moderating it, and I will see you in the next one.